Welcome to Paycheck for Life, Acera's new and mid-career employee webinar. In this webinar, we are assuming that you're either new or you're somewhere in the middle of your career, which is why we named it the new and mid-career employee webinar. The bottom line there is that you are not yet near retirement, which is a good thing because it means you still have plenty of time to plan for your retirement. And in this seminar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know about doing that planning. And since you're curious enough about retirement planning to watch this, you probably have some questions. Questions like, what do I need to know about my pension? What do I need to do, if anything? And, tell me what to do. So I have arranged the answers to the questions I think you're going to ask into the form of this checklist. So these are the topics that we're going to cover in the webinar today. I'm going to help you understand some retirement basics about your membership with Acera. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some pension math. And so I'm just going to give you a little peek into how we calculate your retirement, and that will help you do planning for your retirement now. As part of that discussion, we'll talk about our retirement formula at Acera, and I'll talk about purchasing additional service credit to boost that formula. I will help you get a precision pension estimate using our pension estimating tool on our website. I'll help you understand retirement eligibility when you're actually eligible to retire. It might be earlier than you think. And I will talk about some additional benefits that we offer, including death benefits. And I will help you designate your beneficiary or beneficiaries for those death benefits. Then we'll talk about career planning options. And what I mean by that is that at some point you are going to stop working in your job, your Acera connected job. And then what are your options regarding your membership with Acera and your pension? Okay, and then that will nicely transition into our final topic, which is going to be making a retirement planning picture. So we're going to take a little peek into the future, and we're going to see what your income in retirement might look like, and then we're going to dial it back to now and talk about the moves that you might want to make so that when you get to retirement, you're in good shape. And as part of that discussion, we'll talk about starting a 457B account. Okay, let's jump right in. Let me help you understand some retirement basics first off. So I'll start kind of at the beginning of the story to give you some context for who we are, why we're here. So who is Acera? In one sense, Acera is this acronym that stands for the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. But Acera is made up of a lot of people, and there are about 92 of us that work at Acera, and our entire job is to provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to our members. That's you. You're a member of Acera, so you are part of the who that is Acera. And you're a member of Acera because of the position that you work in and who you work for. So at some point, either currently or in the past, you worked full time in a retirement eligible position for one of the six public employers in Alameda County that use Acera to provide retirement benefits to their employees. So if you work for one of these agencies in a retirement eligible position, and that retirement eligible position has to at least start off as full time, but you can go down to part time later after you start if you want and maintain your membership. Um, by working, being hired in that position, that makes you an Acera member automatically. And as an Acera member, um, your membership is also mandatory. And as an Acera member, you contribute to Acera's fund with every paycheck. Okay, so every time you get paid, and somebody's asking, are you automatically enrolled? Yes, you are. We do have a form that we like you to fill out when you start called the Acera Welcome Form. And you fill that out about 7 weeks after you start your full-time retirement eligible position. And we send you a letter in the mail with instructions on how to do that. Okay, so, and let me know if my voice is clipping. I see some clipping on my audio interface. Um, so yes, you're automatically enrolled, and as an Acera member, every time you get paid, you'll see money come out of your paycheck and go into a Sarah's fund. So if you look in the before tax deductions column, because you're contributing pre-tax, you'll see that there's a line that says something like retirement, and some money's coming out of each paycheck, and that is your employee contribution to a Sarah. And every time you make that employee contribution, your employer is also making a contribution on your behalf. So you're both contributing, and we don't want that money to just sit around and collect dust. So we invest it in a diverse array of investments all over the world, with the goal of earning interest on that money. And uh, we do earn interest over, a good amount of interest over long periods of time. So it's these three sources of income: your contributions, your employer's contributions, and the interest, that give us this big pot of money that we call the Sarah's Fund. So, why are we collecting this money? What are we going to do with this money? Well, the reason we're collecting it is because we're planning for the future. Because as you work in your Sarah covered position, your full time, or if you went down to part time, your retirement eligible position, as you work throughout your entire career, you are earning more and more credit toward retirement the longer you work. And you're earning credit in three categories, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. So you're earning more and more credit as you work throughout your career. And then at some point in the future, we expect that you are going to retire from a Sarah. So you're going to stop earning credit toward retirement, and you're going to start collecting the retirement that you've earned in the form of a monthly retirement allowance that you will receive each and every month for the rest of your life. So you cannot outlive your Sarah retirement allowance. You get it every month for the rest of your life. Okay. Pensions are special in that way. Okay, so what it is, it's a guaranteed dollar amount. It's a guaranteed income for life that you can plan for in advance. You can get very precise estimates using our estimating tool. So you can plan your retirement in advance, and then it's guaranteed. So you'll get it every month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. And private employers don't do this much anymore. So it's very fortunate that you work for a public employer who provides a pension. Also, just kind of a side note here, another reason why pensions are special, why a Sarah in particular is special, is that everything you pay into a Sarah as an employee, plus all the interest that we post to your employee contribution account throughout your entire career, once you retire from a Sarah and start collecting that retirement, we're going to give you all those contributions back through those monthly payments within your first 3 to 5 retired years. And we expect that you're going to live a lot longer than that, because we're going to pay you a lifetime pension. And so if you live another 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years after your retirement, or however long it is, we're just going to keep on paying you that monthly pension for the rest of your life. So it's kind of amazing. Okay, let me show you some milestones, and this will provide some context for some of the different topics that we're going to talk about during the discussion. Okay, these are some of the milestones that you will see in regard to your Sarah membership throughout your career. We have the first milestone, which is your date of hire. This is your first day of work in that retirement eligible position. And like I was saying before, you have to at least start out full time. Then, for 4 of our 6 employers, there's a 2-week lag, and the first day of your second pay period is your first day of a Sarah membership, also known as your date of entry. Now, for Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District and the Housing Authority, there's no 2-week lag time. Your date of hire is your first day of entry, your first day of a Sarah membership. Okay. So now you're in a Sarah member and you start earning credit toward retirement. One of the 3 categories that you're earning credit toward retirement in is called service credit, and it's just basically time worked. So let's say that you work for 5 years full time, or the equivalent of 5 years full time. Well, once you achieve 5 years of service credit, you earn 5 years of service credit if you do that. And once you achieve 5 years of service credit, you're considered vested in the retirement system. And vesting is kind of a loose concept, but it kind of means guaranteed. And there's vested benefits, there's guaranteed benefits, so you'll hear that word thrown around. But what happens at once you achieve the 5 years of service credit is that you start being able to unlock the ability to collect some of those benefits that you have been earning and that are guaranteed. Okay, then some other indeterminate amount of time passes, and you achieve retirement eligibility through some combination of your years of service credit and your age. So that data is going to be different for everyone. And there's a few different combinations that will get you there. I'll show you what those are in the second half of the presentation. But this would be the first day that you could physically retire from a SARA if you choose. Now, many people do not choose to retire on this day because they want to earn more credit toward retirement to increase their monthly pension payment when they finally do retire. So at some point on or after your retirement eligibility date, you will have your termination date, which is the day that your last day on payroll with your employer. And this is the day that you stop earning service credit. You'll earn service credit right up until your last 15 minutes of work on that day because we measure your service credit down to the fraction of a day. And you get all of those 15-minute increments in the retirement formula when I show that to you. Okay, then many people will work straight into retirement, which is why I've put these two milestones together. So many people will stop working on one day and go straight into retirement on the next day. So the next milestone is your retirement date. This is a date that you choose when you're ready to retire, and this is the day that you start collecting the retirement that you've earned. Now, if you're not going to go straight into retirement, you're going to stop working and you're going to defer your retirement to a later date, totally fine. I'll talk about that in the second half of the presentation when I talk about career planning. And in your case, there would be a gap between these two dates, and that's totally fine. You can do that. Okay, so now you're retired. You start collecting your lifetime pension every month for the rest of your life until your death. That is when your retirement payments stop. Now, there's one more milestone on the chart, and that is because at the time of retirement, you have the opportunity to name a beneficiary to receive continuing payments after your death, known as a continuance. And in most cases, it is a continuing monthly payment for the rest of your beneficiary's life until their death. So once your beneficiary dies, that would conclude a SARA paying out all of the benefits that you've earned that we owe you and your family or your beneficiaries. Okay. And let me say a couple more things about vesting. Like I said, it happens at 5 years of service credit. That includes reciprocal service credit if you have multiple California pension systems linked together. I will talk about the ability to do that in the second half of the presentation. Where does the guarantee come from? I said vesting means guaranteed. It comes from state law. State law governs everything we do. And the guaranteed benefits are that monthly retirement benefit for life, an annual cost of living adjustment, which is a percentage increase in retirement each year to your retirement allowance, and a lump sum death benefit. And there's other death benefits available also, but I just like to mention this $1,000 basic lump sum death benefit. One thing as a side note I want to mention here is I will probably throw around some synonyms for this concept: monthly retirement benefit, retirement allowance, pension, pension benefit, monthly pension benefit. These are all synonyms for the same concept, which is that you getting a direct deposit from us on the last business day of the month for the rest of your life once you retire. Okay, let me tell you about your tier. You're all in one of these tiers, and it's based on your entry date into a SARA. So first off, let me help you find the timeline to look at for yourself. If you're a safety member, which is a sheriff's deputy or a probation officer, you're looking at the bottom timelines. That's safety members. Anyone who's not a safety member, so probation officers and sheriff's deputies, are general members. So you're looking at the top timeline, unless you're a general member who works for the housing authority or a general member who works for Livermore Area Recreation and Park District, and then you look at the timeline for your employer. Okay, so the way this works is if you enter a SARA before the cutoff date for the tier, that puts you in the earlier tier. So if you were a general member and you entered a SARA before July 1st, 1983, that would have put you in tier one. That was a while ago. There's not a lot of tier one members left who haven't retired yet. If you entered a SARA July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that would have put you in tier two. If you entered a SARA January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that would put you into tier four. And that is the case with all of the timelines. Now you'll notice the housing authority has a different tier one cutoff. LARPD does not have a tier two. They have a tier three that they negotiated for their employees, and there's a different cutoff for tier one. And safety members, there's three different tier twos. And if you entered Acera between October 17th, 2010 and December 31st, 2012, you had the choice between Tier 2C and Tier 2D within the first 45 days of your safety membership. And if you didn't make a selection, then you were defaulted into one of the tiers. Okay, so that's a lot of info. If you don't know what your date of entry was, or you're not sure what your tier is, the best way to figure it out exactly is to log into your account on our website, and it will tell you exactly what your date of entry to Acera is, and it will tell you exactly which tier we have you in. And the way you do that, let me show that to you, is you go over to acera.org. And okay, so acera.org, okay. And then on every page, there's this login button. You click the login button. Okay, now if you've already done this, if you've already created an account, you just log in with your username and password. If you have not done that yet, and you're brand new, let's say that you started your membership within the last you started your pension eligible job within the last 7 weeks, you're gonna have to wait till you receive a letter from us. Um, and then there will be instructions on how to create your member direct account. For everyone else who has not logged in yet, who has been here for more than 7 weeks, what you are going to have to do is click the enroll button to enroll, and you're going to need this enrollment pin. And we sent one out to everyone last year. If you didn't use it, you're going to have to request a new one because it expires. So you hit request an enrollment pin, fill out the info, hit request pin, and then we'll send you a letter in the mail in a few days with your PIN. Sorry, it takes a few days, but that's for extra security. And then when you get the letter in the mail, you come back to acera.org, hit the login button, hit enroll, and then you can use your enrollment PIN, fill out the rest, and create your login. And that's how you log in. If you need any help with that process, we just created a video. I haven't linked it very many places on the website yet, but if you go under members, there's videos, and there's actually, let me see, it's a Sarah account login help, and that walks you through the whole process of creating your Sarah account, member direct account. Okay, I see a few questions popped up. Okay, somebody is asking about who can be a beneficiary. I'll save that question for later because I do have slides on that. Somebody's asking, do you get the pension plus your paycheck retirement contributions? You get either or. So we're going to use those contributions you're paying into the system throughout your career in order to pay you your lifetime pension. So you're not also going to get a refund of your contributions. But you can take a refund. That's an option. It's not a good option because the pension pays way more over a long period of time. But we'll talk about that in the second half of the presentation when we talk about career planning. And somebody's asking, what does tier four mean? Well, you are all in one of these tiers, okay? And the difference between the tiers is we calculate your pension a little bit differently. There's kind of different rules with each tier, and that'll become more illuminated as we talk about different topics. So we'll get to that, but you are put into a certain tier based on when you enter Acera. So if you entered Acera January 1st, 2013 and beyond, then that would have put you in tier four. Okay, and let's see here. Somebody's asking, who should I contact if I started 9 weeks ago and haven't received anything? You can go ahead and give us a call at 510-628, and I'll type this in 3000. And one of my colleagues will be able to help you out. Okay, another beneficiary question I'll save for later. Question about the retirement calculation, I'll save that for just a minute. And service credit purchase. Um, re-entering under a previous tier. Okay, well, we will talk about service credit purchases. There is some info out on the website about um, getting into an earlier tier. If you go to acera.org/tier, there's info here. If you scroll down to the bottom, reciprocity may put you into an earlier tier. Previous work may put you into an earlier tier. So definitely check out that info at acera.org/slash tier. And it is possible that a purchase, especially if it's a redeposit, could put you into an earlier tier. Okay. So at this point, I want to give you some context for the overarching discussion. Okay. The reason that we do this, the reason that we're here, and perhaps the reason that you are curious about this presentation is we want to put you in a good situation when it comes time for you to retire. So it's good at this point as a new employee or as a mid-career employee to take a little peek into the future to see what your possible income might look when you finally retire years from now. Okay. So when you go to retire, um, you're going to receive income from a few different sources. If you earn you fully earn the Acera pension, you meet the minimum requirements, and you retire from Acera, you will receive the Acera pension for the rest of your life, also known as the paycheck for life, because you stop receiving your employer's paycheck and then your pension takes over. Okay, that's only going to be part of your income, perhaps. If you are paying into the Social Security system, and all general members are, safety members, I believe, I'm not sure if you're paying into the Social Security system. I think you may not be. But as long as you pay into Social Security for at least 10 years or what they call 40 quarters, you will be able to collect Social Security when you reach the age that you can collect that, and you can add that to your sources of income. Anything beyond your Sarah pension, or maybe you have a pension from another government agency that you worked for, and Social Security is just going to be your personal savings and investments. And what financial planners will say is that when you retire, you are going to need to replace 80% of your working income with this retirement income through these combination of sources. So you're going to need to achieve 80% salary replacement from these sources of retirement income to maintain your standard of living. And if you don't, then you won't be able to maintain your standard of living. Okay. So that might sound like a stressful thing. Like how the heck am I going to do that? And you're seeing like math being done here. What I'm going to do is at the last thing I'm going to do in this presentation is I'm going to return to this topic. So I'm going to talk a lot about your Acera pension right now, and then I'm going to return to this slide. We'll talk about how to get a Social Security estimate, and then we're going to use an online calculator. We're going to use some technology to figure out if you need to save additional money and how much and when you should start saving it and where to save it. And it's actually not complicated at all. I think you'll find that it is extremely simple to do this, and you actually don't have to do any math because we're just going to use these online calculators. Okay, so let's come back to this topic after I tell you all about your Sarah pension. So, what I want to do, the other thing that I want to do is help you maximize these numbers. Okay. I want to help you maximize your Acera pension. So if I help you understand how we calculate your pension now, even though it's not going to be for a while, and you may be thinking, I don't necessarily need to know that. It's not that complicated. And if you understand how it works now, it could help you dial in your pension and make sure that you get the maximum that you are entitled to. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you our pension calculation right now, and I'm going to explain how it works, and then you can just, come away from this webinar, knowing what the different um, levers are that you can flip or the dials that you can turn to dial in this monthly retirement allowance for life. Okay, so when you go to retire, sometime far in the future, what Acera is going to do and what our software is going to do is it's going to do this calculation that's going to determine your monthly retirement allowance for life. It's going to multiply these three factors, these three pieces of data from your career, And that's going to determine your monthly retirement allowance for life. Okay. Now, this is probably the only math I'm going to show you, and you don't really have to do any math. I'm going to walk you through this. And let's do an example. Okay. And I think it will help illustrate this concept. Okay. So when you go to retire, you are going to get, as your monthly retirement allowance for life, you are going to get a percentage of your highest salary for each individual year of service that you work. Okay. So let me plug in some numbers. This sentence is saying in English what this multiplication is doing. And I think if I plug in some numbers, it will help illustrate it. Okay. So let's say, for example, that the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service is 2%. Exactly, 2.00%. And let's also say that when you go to retire, you have worked for exactly 20 years, or the equivalent of 20 full-time years, in your ACERA covered position. So you earned 20 years of service credit. Okay. What that means is that your monthly retirement allowance for life is going to be 2% for each one of those individual 20 years. You're going to get 2% of your highest salary for each individual one of those 20 years. So basically, we're taking 2% of your salary and we're lining them all up 20 times. In this example, we're adding 2% of your salary plus 2% of your salary plus 2% of your salary 20 times. Essentially, we're multiplying them together. 2% times 20 is 40%. That means your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of your working salary. Now, we also do a highest average monthly salary calculation. Let's say, for the example, that it is $5,000 per month. That's your highest average salary while you're working. So now we know your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of the 5,000. We'll finish out the multiplication, and that equals $2,000. So you would receive $2,000 a month every month for the rest of your life. That's how we do the calculation. So when I say you're earning credit toward retirement in three categories, these are the three categories you're earning credit toward retirement. You're earning credit toward retirement in this age factor percentage category by aging. And the older you are, the higher the percentage is going to be. I'll show you that in a minute. The service credit category, you work longer, you earn more years of service credit. The highest average monthly salary category, you earn higher and higher salaries over your career through cost of living increases, through raises, perhaps, and also through perhaps promotions. If you promote into higher and higher positions, there's another thing that you can do if you find a higher paying position, not for your employer, but for another agency we have reciprocity with. That's another way that you can increase your salary in the calculation. And I'll talk about reciprocity when I talk about career planning. So the way that you maximize your monthly retirement allowance for life is maximizing each one of these three factors: working longer, the salary, the age. You don't really, I mean, you don't, that increases at the same rate. So you don't have a ton of control over that. So that's, when you're thinking, and if you're earning more service credit, you're aging anyway, so you're kind of dialing in both of these at the same time. But that's kind of the way that you do it. The bottom line here is that because this is a multiplication, the higher any of the three factors are in the multiplication, the higher the monthly retirement allowance for life. Okay. And somebody's asking highest average monthly salary. That's gross salary. And I'll talk about how we calculate that. There's a couple of questions on that. I'll talk exactly about how we calculate that. There's at least three questions on that. And it's not over your entire career. It's a fixed period, and I will cover that. Okay. So actually, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to give you a few more details about each one of these three things and how we calculate it. And I think that'll answer a bunch of your questions. Okay. And somebody's asking, is 2% the standard? It's not. Okay. So let's start off talking about the age factor percentage. What percentage of your highest salary will you get for each year of service? How do we determine that? Well, we determine that based on your tier. This is one of the ways that the different tiers differ. Each tier has its own set of age factors that are written into the state law. The percentages don't change, okay? So these are written into the law. And the way it works is, first off, what the column that you're going to look at is just for your tier. So if you're a general tier 4 member, only look at the general tier 4 column. If you're a safety tier 4 member, you're looking over here. Okay. And again, safety members are sheriff's deputies and probation officers, and everyone else is a general member. Okay. So the way this works is um, when you go to retire, whatever age you are, we take that percentage from the age factor percentage chart and we put that in the formula for you. So if you were a general tier 4 member and you retired at age 60, you would get 1.80% of your highest salary for each year of service. But if you worked another 2 years, you would earn 2 more years of service credit. And in the age factor category, you would have aged 2 years and your percentage goes up to 2% if you retired at age 62 as a general tier 4 member. And you'll note that the percentages get higher and higher and higher until you max it out. There's a maximum age factor percentage that you can reach for each tier denoted by the blue box. So if you retire at that age or older, you get that maximum age factor percentage for your tier. So if you retired at 68 as a general tier 4 member, you would get the 2.50%. Okay. Now, these are not all the percentage increases. They don't all fit on the slide because there's an incremental increase with every quarter year you age, actually, based on your birthday. And there's more info about that on our website, acera.org/age. But just real quick, if your birthday is January 15th, for example, 1 quarter after your birthday would be April 15th, 2 quarters after your birthday would be July 15th, and so on and so forth. Every time you age 1 quarter, there's an incremental percentage increase that you would get in the formula for you. Okay. And again, there's more info about that on our website. That's kind of probably mostly what you need to know right now about the age factor percentages. You just kind of, want to walk away from this webinar kind of with this bottom line. Older retirement age equals higher age factor percentage, but up to the maximum for your tier. Okay. And somebody's asking, for example, how do you find out what your percentage is? Well, you would only know speculatively because you don't actually know which age you're going to retire at. You probably you may have an idea of what age you want to retire at, and so when you do projections, you would think about that. Like if you are planning to retire at age 65 and you're a general tier 4 member, then you would be looking at 2.30%. But at this point, you're only making kind of projections about the future because obviously the future, is ever changing and you don't know exactly what's going to happen. You're welcome. Okay, so that's the age factor percentage details. Let me give you some details on earning service credit and perhaps purchasing service credit to increase the amount of service credit in the formula for you. So you enter Acera. You start earning service credit. You're going to earn service credit throughout your entire career as you work, all the way up until your last day on payroll. Your service credit is measured in years. And like I was saying earlier, we measure it down to the fraction of a day in 15-minute increments. And you'll get all those decimal places in the formula when we calculate your final retirement. So if you've already been here for like 7+ years, if you look at your service credit amount in your member direct account on our website, and it says 7.678254, all those decimal places are as calculating your earned service credit down in the fraction of a day. You earn service credit while you work during your regular work hours. You also earn service credit during your earned leave times, and that includes earned vacation leave, sick leave, management leave if you get that, comp time if you have some of that, holidays and floating holidays. When you mark those on your timesheet, they do not count against you for earning service credit. You do earn service credit during that time. Now, you do not earn service credit whenever you're on leave without pay. You're not earning service credit. If you purchase additional vacation, which 3 or 4 of our employers allow you to purchase extra vacation on top of your earned vacation, whenever you mark a purchased vacation on your timesheet, you're not earning service credit during that time. Having said that, if you take a purchased vacation here or there throughout a long career, it's not going to affect your final retirement allowance by that much. So I wouldn't sweat it. If you need to take an extra vacation for your sanity, just go ahead and do that. Okay, now there's this different concept, selling vacation. Some of our employers allow that, where you take your earned vacation, you sell it back to your employer for cash, and you don't actually go out on vacation. You don't get service credit for that. You may earn salary credit for that. I'll talk about that in just a minute. You also don't earn service credit during I'm sorry, overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Okay, now you can already see that the first way to dial in the service credit number is just work longer, earn more and more service credit. There's a second way. You can get a little more additional service credit if you have eligible time to purchase service credit. And this will increase the amount of service credit that we put in the formula for you. Now, you can't just buy airtime, what they call airtime, which is just, I want to buy an extra year, so I'm just going to pay for it. You can't do that. The law disallowed that. That was passed in 2012, and Acera has never allowed that. But there are some types of time that are eligible, and kind of the theme here is that when you incurred one of these types of time, or more than one, the law did not allow for you to earn service credit during that time, but it does allow for you to go back later and make and purchase that time as a Sarah service credit. So let me walk you through these. Oops. Okay, the first is basically kind of the theme here is time worked before your retirement eligible position. And I'm not talking about working for a temporary agency or an employment agency. I'm not talking about working under contract. Those are not purchasable. But these other types of time, part-time work, just plain old part-time work for your employer before you got your full-time retirement eligible position, that's purchasable. Other categories that might fall into that, same idea, seasonal work, intermittent work, service as needed, project work, per diem work, those are all purchasable types of time. Also, tap time, which is the county's temporary assignment pool, all of the tap time is purchasable. Okay. The next category, days between hire date and entry date, the 2 week lag time, that is purchasable. And somebody had asked about that. Yes, that's purchasable. Okay, unpaid medical leave. If you ever go out on unpaid medical leave during your career, once you return from that leave, you can buy that time up to 1 year per instance, and it's only for your medical condition, not a family member's medical condition. Um, so maybe you go out on medical leave and you burn through all your sick leave when you were getting paid the sick leave, you already earned service credit, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you just are on unpaid medical leave. That unpaid medical leave time, that's purchasable when you return from that time. Some people ask about FMLA. FMLA is the federal law that designates that you can be out for 12 weeks. There may be some extensions in there without losing your job. And that's kind of like this category that is applied to the time. But if you're using your earned sick leave time during the FMLA leave, you're already earning the service credit for that time. It's just when the rest of the time you're on unpaid medical leave, when you return from that time, it's purchasable because you did not earn service credit when you're on unpaid medical leave. Okay. State disability insurance leave, and also somebody asked about workers' comp. These are the same, those are similar concepts, perhaps the same concept. I'm not super clear on it. But what happens is that you are injured in some capacity or you're incapacitated somehow, and you are being paid from the state's system. Sometimes what happens is you'll get a partial check from your employer, and the other part of your time is paid from the state system. If you get a partial check from your employer, you do earn service credit for that partial time, so you don't have to buy that back. But the other part of it, the state disability insurance leave or workers' comp leave, that is purchasable once you return from that leave because you're not earning service credit for that time while you're out on it. Military leave during membership. You can buy that time upon returning from the military leave. This is not prior military service. This is you're actively employed for at one of our 6 employers. You go out on military leave. You come back. You can buy that time. Okay. Uh, and somebody's asking about deadlines. I'll talk about that in just a second. Deadlines for purchasing service credit. Okay. Redeposits of prior memberships. This is where you used to be an Acera member in the past. You worked for one of our employers, but you stopped working there. And when you stopped working there, you took a refund of your employee contribution account. And when you did that, you lost all your service credit that you earned under that initial employment time. Okay, now you're back working for one of our 6 employers and you want to get that time back, you can put that money back in. And that is called a redeposit of a prior membership. It's the amount of money that you took out, and you'll get that time back, that original time from that original membership. And I will talk about the cost of purchasing service credit in just a minute and how to do it. And also redeposits of community property. Okay, this is where you are married or you are in a state registered domestic partnership. And California is a community property state, which means that if you earned retirement credit with a Sarah during that marriage or during that state registered domestic partnership, your ex or soon to be ex spouse or partner, when you go to divide the property, your Acera retirement is part of the community property that is up for division. So you can, some people negotiate away other parts of the community property to keep their pension whole. Some people don't. It all depends on how you negotiate it. But if you don't, your ex-spouse will take part of your Acera account with them. They take part of your service credit and a proportionate amount of your employee contribution account. Now, if in the future they decide to take a refund of that employee contribution account from now their now, a individual account that is theirs, and they take a refund, we will send you a letter in the mail telling you that they did that and give you the opportunity to redeposit an equivalent amount of money to get an equivalent amount of service credit back. And that is called a redeposit of community property. Okay, the last category, other California prior public service. This is time that you worked for another public agency in California. There's some examples here, and you don't work there anymore. You work here, and you're not eligible to collect a pension from whatever pension system they use. Usually because you either did not work there for long enough to be eligible for their pension, or when you left, you took a refund from their pension system. You can buy that time as a Sarah service credit. So if you worked for East Bay Mud for 3 years, for example, and that doesn't get you anything in their pension system, or you took a refund of those 3 years, you can buy that 3 years as a Sarah service credit. Okay. Now, the time, all of these bullet points up here count toward vesting, count toward the 5 year vesting. This one does not. Okay. And then one more thing I wanted to say about that. Let me see. I think there was a question here. Okay. Well, I forgot what I was going to say, but it'll come back to me. Okay. So, oh yeah, it was the deadlines. The deadlines of when to purchase service credit. Okay. So, your deadline for purchasing service credit, if you already have one of these eligible times, or if you incur one of these types of time in the future, is you have to finish paying for the service credit by the time you retire. So, it's not a very stringent deadline. You'll see in just a second, though, it gets more expensive the longer you wait. Now, the one exception is the military leave during membership. You have either 3 times the time of the leave or a maximum of 5 years to pay it back once you return. That's the only one with a sooner deadline. There's more information about that at acera.org/service. Okay, now let me talk about time not eligible for service credit purchase. Vacation purchase time. If you purchase extra vacation, you don't earn service credit for it, you cannot purchase that time back later. Okay. But you got to take a nice vacation. Also, non medical leave without pay. Any other type of leave without pay that's not medical leave for your own medical condition, not purchasable. Like I said, contract or temporary agency time, not purchasable. Other prior public service time where you still have contributions on deposit with the other agency. Now, let's say you did work for East Bay Mud for 3 years and you still have your contributions on deposit with their pension system. Well, we are going to require that you take a refund of those contributions before you can buy that time as a Sarah service credit. Now, one sticky note that I want to put on this for now is that for those of you who have reciprocity with another retirement system, you're not going to be worrying about making the service credit purchase because you've already linked the systems together. Okay. If you can establish reciprocity, it's usually cheaper and more synergistic to link the systems together rather than take a refund and buy that time as a Sarah service credit. But we will talk about reciprocity in the second half of the presentation. Okay, and somebody's asking about that. I came from CalPERS where I was vested. I was informed that my time at CalPERS would allow me to be vested in Acera. Am I mistaken? You are not mistaken. If they looked at your account and they told you that, it sounds like you would have to establish reciprocity and link the systems together. But then you would be considered vested in Acera also if were already vested in CalPERS. Okay, and let me finish out the service credit topic, and then I see a bunch of service credit questions on here. Okay, so let's see here. We already did that. Okay, how much will the service credit purchase cost if you do make the service credit purchase? Well, it's going to cost what your employee contributions had been had you worked the time plus interest. Okay, so for example, let's say that you um, are out on 3 months of unpaid medical leave. And had you been working during that 3 months, you would have been receiving a paycheck for your employer, and Sarah would have been taking an amount, your employee contribution, out of your paycheck and putting it in a Sarah's fund. Um, and that's your employee contribution. So, but you were not here to do that. You were out on unpaid medical leave. So then when you return from the unpaid medical leave, if you try to purchase the service credit immediately, it's only going to cost you what your employee contributions had been had you worked that time. So, an easy way to figure that out is you just look at whatever your pay stub is after you get back, and you can just kind of go by, what you look at your contributions to a Sarah, and you can just kind of multiply that over the pay periods that you were out on the unpaid leave. Okay. Now, if you wait, what happens is you end up owing interest because if you had been here to make the contributions, we would have invested the money and it would have been earning interest. Okay. So you're going to have to pay the interest that that money would have earned had you contributed it to the fund during that time and it's the interest that it would have earned between when you would have contributed it and now. So for example, you go out on the unpaid medical leave for 3 months, you come back, but you don't purchase it immediately. Let's say you wait 5 years. Well, we have two interest periods per year, so that is 10 individual 6 month interest periods for which the interest is that you're going to have to pay. So you're going to have to pay all of the interest that the money would have earned between then and now, which is why the longer you wait to purchase service credit, the more expensive it gets. Another way to say it is the best time to purchase service credit is as soon as you possibly can. As soon as you recognize that you have one of these purchasable types of time, go ahead and um, submit our purchase request form, which is at acera.org/forms. It's a DocuSign form, I believe. Let me just double check that real fast. I think we put that one on DocuSign. Yep, DocuSign. So you're going to acera.org/forms, or you can go under here, forms, scroll down to purchase request form, right here, DocuSign. Click that, it'll open the DocuSign. You fill it out electronically. You don't have to do any paperwork. And then what we do, we receive it, we do the calculations, we tell you, and we send you a letter in the mail telling you how much it's going to cost to make the service credit purchase and giving you different options. And at that point, you decide if you want to make the service credit purchase and how much of the purchase that you want to make. All the different types of time you can purchase just a portion of it if you want to, except for the redeposits, those have to be made in full. Um, but that's your decision point. So go if you have one of the types of time, go ahead and submit the form. Like don't be making the decision now. Make the decision once you see how much it's going to cost, and then you can make that decision. And we do give you on the letter we give you different options. You can write us a check to pay for it on a post-tax basis. You can roll over pre-tax funds if you have pre-tax funds sitting in a pre-tax retirement account. We will split it up for you over an amount of payroll deductions, which means we'll take it directly out of your paycheck. And so you don't really have to think about it, or we can do any combination of the three. Okay, so let me check on, let me go back to the beginning here. answer these service credit questions. So I also, okay, somebody asked how far back can you purchase service credit? There's no limit, as far back as you have it. But like I said, if it goes pretty far back, it might be rather expensive, but wait till you get the letter from us to decide. Let's see how. Okay, I'll answer that in just a second. How far back can you purchase service credit for, let's say, FMLA maternity leave? Yep, all the way back. So if it was a long time ago, doesn't matter. You can still purchase it. Okay, and then somebody asked, how do we contact to figure out how much it's going to cost? You fill out the form. That's how you do it. So you don't need to call us or email us. You just fill out the purchase request form. And just as a caveat here, it can take a couple of months to hear back from us because we have a lot of these calculations to do, and also we have to contact your former employer, and sometimes it takes them a long time to get back to us. Somebody's asking, how do we contact to purchase time back? Yep, that's how you do it. Purchase request form, and you'll see on the form it'll ask you what type of time, and you just check the boxes for the type of time. Somebody's asking, can they sign a waiver on the community property? Well, if let's say you get divorced or dissolve your state registered domestic partnership, I've never heard like are you asking if they can pre-sign a waiver? I've never heard of a waiver that Acera offers. I don't think that's one of Acera's forms. That would be something that you would want to probably contact a lawyer about, and probably that would be part of a prenuptial agreement. And I am not a lawyer, so that's probably the extent of my knowledge. Now, if you're already married or you're already in the partnership, then what you're talking about is it's more like not really them signing a waiver, but it's like you negotiating during the divorce process or say registered domestic partner dissolution process. And you usually have to work with a lawyer on that too. And they work out all that paperwork. But you do the negotiations and decide what gets split where, and then your lawyer will submit the paperwork to us to tell us whether to divide your account or not. Okay, and somebody's asking, can you protect your benefit through a prenup? I believe, again, you want to check with a lawyer on that. Um, if I was taking a wild guess, based on what I've seen about, prenups and Coen Brothers movies, probably, but I have no idea. So, probably, but yeah, definitely contact a lawyer about that. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so here's another question. During COVID period, I used up my sick leave for COVID, and I had to use leave without pay since I did not qualify for FMLA at the time. For that case, can I buy the service credit for the absent time? Okay, so I don't I've never heard that the unpaid medical leave has to specifically be designated as FMLA. That would be something that you may want to go ahead. I mean, you could just go ahead and fill out the purchase request form and we'll tell you. But if you want to know ahead of time, my suggestion would be to contact us. If you go to acera.org and you go to the contact page, you can see that we have our phone number here, so you can give us a call. My colleagues would probably be able to answer that real quick. You can email us if you are an Acera member and you've already been around for 7 weeks, so you're in our system. We do now request not necessarily request, but we do mandate that you email us in your Acera account. So if you do try to email us and you click yes, you have an Acera account, you're going to have to sign into the member portal to email us. because we want to keep your, there's financial information flying around, and so we want to keep your email to us secure. Okay, so somebody's asking, how do we calculate how much an ex-spouse is entitled to from the Sarah pension? Is there a mutual way to resolve this privately? An ex-spouse waives payment from a Sarah. Well, I think the standard is 50-50 for all assets. But again, like I said, I'm not a lawyer. You may want to go ahead and read our divorce page. If you go to acera.org/divorce, there's more info there about that. And so you can read through that information. There's some different forms to fill out. Our legal department will answer some basic questions. So if you do email us in your member direct account some questions, that could be sent over to a legal department. They can't give you legal advice, but they can, basically tell you how divorce or domestic partnership dissolution affects your Sarah benefit. Okay, so question. It took me 6 weeks from the date I received my letter hiring me and the first day on the job. Does that mean I can buy the 6 weeks? I don't think so. Um, because your first day on the job, there was actually probably a 2 week lag time. It depends on which employer you work for. For four of our employers, there's a 2 week lag time. But um, the date of hire, if there's a lag time between the date of hire and the date of entry, that 2 weeks you can buy, but not the time before that when you were just waiting to start your job. Somebody's asking, how can we determine if it's more beneficial financially to purchase the credit or keep things as is? Okay, we do have a rudimentary explanation of that. If you go to acera.org/service and you scroll down to the bottom, okay, so there's a whole article on purchasing and redepositing service credit. Scroll down to the bottom, and there's an FAQ, and we're gonna improve this info. Um, there's a question in here. How can I figure out whether making a service credit purchase is worth it? And it kind of walks you through that. What it walks you through is getting two estimates with the benefit estimator. You get your so you log into your Acera account. You use the benefit estimator. You make one estimate where you're not purchasing service credit. You just make it a plain estimate. And then the second one, there's an override field where you can add service credit. So you make a second estimate for the same scenario where you have more service credit. And the second estimate is larger. You have a higher projected retirement allowance. And then you can take the two estimates and subtract the smaller one from the larger one and see how much more you would make, how many more dollars you would make every month in retirement if you were to make the service credit purchase. And then what I would do is take the letter from us where they tell you how much it's going to cost to make the service credit purchase. It's going to be a dollar amount. And let's say that we're telling you it's going to cost $1,200 to make the service credit purchase, but by making the service credit purchase, it increases your retirement allowance by $100 per month. Well, if you divide 1,200 the cost by the $100 increase, that's 12 months of increased retirement allowance payments that it takes you to get your purchase amount back. So you just basically kind of figure it out for yourself about how long it, because eventually the increased retirement allowance payment, will pay you back for making the service credit purchase. It's just a matter of how long it takes in retirement. Okay, so that's a lot about service credit. I do need to move on to keep things moving so we can get to all the topics. So let me So we talked about the age factor percentage. We talked about the years of service credit. Let me tell you about the highest average monthly salary calculation and what determines that. When you go to retire, we are going to our software is going to find your period of highest pay in your career. In our pension lingo, this is your final compensation period. If you're in tiers 1 and 3, and this is another one of the ways that the tiers differ. If you're in tiers 1 and 3, your final compensation period, your period of highest consecutive pay, is your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods. If you're in tiers 2 or 4, it's going to be your final compensation period is your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. Essentially, in tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay, In tiers two and four, it's your highest 3 years of pay. And since our goal for the calculation is to calculate your highest average monthly salary, all we do is our software looks at your total pay during that highest year or 3 years of pay and divides by the number of months in that period to get your highest average monthly salary during that time. It's a pretty basic calculation. And then, so once they do that calculation, they take that number and plug it into the formula, multiply it by the other two factors, and that determines your retirement allowance for life. And so it's all gross pay before any deductions are taken out that is included in highest average salary calculation. And the types of pay are, of course, your base pay, and then there could be some additional pay types that could be included in this calculation. Other pay codes. These are sometimes known as footnotes. Some of these may be included, some of these may not be included. There's like 1,000 different pay codes, and some of them are included and some of them aren't. If you're curious about whether your particular pay code, if you have an additional pay code, usually it's based on additional skills or languages that you speak or education levels. You can go to acera.org/pay codes and there's a list and it'll say yes or no. You can look up your pay code and it'll say yes or no whether it counts or not. Overtime never counts. Okay. Now there were a few questions about this. If you're in tiers one and two, not tiers three and four, if you are compensated for your earned unused vacation, either through selling your vacation back to your employer or simply having vacation left over on the books when you stop working that you haven't taken and then they cash you out for it at that time, that that money can boost your salary up to a certain point for calculating your highest average salary for calculating your retirement allowance. So it could boost your retirement allowance if you're in tiers one and two. Um, there's a limit on that. There's a lot of ins and outs about that. I'm not going to take a deep dive into that here because that's a ways away, and I find that increasingly most people in this webinar are in tier four, and tier four people can't do it because the state passed a law that said that created tier four, and they disallowed that. But if you do want to take a deeper dive into that, all you do is go out to our website, scroll down to the bottom of the first page, and go to the pre-retirement webinar. And I talk about that for probably 20 minutes. Just click on it as a YouTube video. Just fast forward through the video until you get to basically that same slide that I was just showing you right there. Vacation sales and vacation cash out. Okay. And then I take a deep dive into that topic if you're curious about it. But yeah, if you're in tiers one and two, some vacation sales and cash out, if paid during the final compensation period, could boost your retirement allowance a little bit. Okay, let's see here. And somebody's asking, can you confirm that if I worked for another California system, those years cannot go toward vesting with Alameda County, even if I purchase those years as service credit? That's correct. If you're purchasing those years of service credit from another public agency, that does not count toward the vesting requirement. Okay, so one thing that I want to mention about your retirement allowance are some limits to the benefit payments. There's a few different limits. You can read more about those at acera.org/limits. One of the basic ones is that your retirement allowance can't be more than 100% of your highest average monthly salary. So you can't really make more in retirement than you were making as a working person. Most people don't hit that limit, and if you do, you're doing really good. The one limit that I do want to highlight here is for tier four members. Um, when the state created Tier 4 back in 2012, which took effect January 1st, 2013, they did cap the amount of salary dollars that Acera is allowed to use to calculate your retirement allowance. And the cap is in annual dollars, and it's based on the Social Security wage index limit that comes from the federal government. So if you do have a high salary, if you do have a higher salary, above the cap, any money you make above that annual dollar limit, we cannot consider for calculating your retirement. So if you were a general member, so for 2025, for example, the cap is $1,555.81 $155,081 for general members, $186,096 for safety members. These do increase every year when Social Security increases the wage index limits. And we keep those posted out on our website. So those are always available here. The way it works is that if you do have one of those higher salaries, once you hit that cap for the year, we stop taking retirement contributions out of your check for the rest of the year. And then your retirement contributions pick back up in January. And during that time where we're not taking out retirement contributions, the kind of little bit of a upside to that is that you have more dollars to save in your 457B account for the rest of the year. Okay. And this is the whole formula put together. In this example, the Tier 4 member retires at age 65 after earning 25 years exactly of service credit. Because they're a Tier 4 member, they're a general member, and they retired at age 65, we took the 2.30% age factor percentage out of the chart for them, put it in the formula here, multiply it by the service credit, multiply it by their highest average monthly salary, and that determines their monthly retirement allowance for life. And just kind of as a side note, you can always take the age factor percentage and multiply it by the years of service, and that tells you the percent salary replacement you are achieving. In this example, this person is replacing 57.5% of their working salary with their monthly retirement allowance. So this dollar amount is 57.5% of this dollar amount. And that's really good for just the pension alone because you'll put the Social Security in there and it'll probably get you the rest of the way, if not the additional savings. Okay, let me show you, let me walk you through getting a pension estimate. Now that you understand the retirement formula and what goes into calculating your future pension. So now we can use our technology in your member account to get you a precision estimate or as many precision estimates as you want for different retirement scenarios. Okay, so here's how you do it. I'm going to show you some screenshots because it's easier to do. So you go to acera.org. You click the login button. And I showed you already how to get your PIN to enroll and go through that process. So once you're enrolled and you're logged in, what you're going to do is click on the Estimate a Benefit link here, and that takes you to the Estimate a Benefit tool. Then you're going to think of a retirement scenario that you want to get a projection for. So you just think of a plausible retirement scenario. Maybe you're going to retire 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 25 years from now. Or maybe you want to do it by age. What happens if I retire at age 55? What happens if I retire at age 57? What happens if I retire at age 60? So you just pick one to start, and then you put in a couple of dates, okay? And I'll zoom in here so that you can see it a little bit better. It's going to ask you for separation date and payments begin date. Separation date is your last day on payroll with your employer. Payments begin date is your first day of Acera retirement. So if your plan is to go straight from active work to retirement, or if you just want to see what happens, if you don't want to do a projection, what happens if I work straight until I'm 62 and I go straight into retirement? You just pick a couple of dates that are consecutive, one after the other. Like in this example, it's August 8th and August 9th of 2040. And you plug those dates in. Now, if your plan or you want to get a projection for stopping work but not retiring immediately, you can do that too. So there would be a gap between these dates. So just play around with it, do as many of these as you want, and just play around with different scenarios. You can plug in beneficiary info if you want, or if you've already designated a beneficiary with Acera, it may be pre-populated. If it is pre-populated, make sure the date of birth is correct, because if it's not, it could throw off some of the calculations. And then there are some checkboxes here that help you customize the estimate if you want. I suggest not customizing the estimate, leaving all the checkboxes unchecked, and you get a nice conservative estimate. And that way you're not disappointed if you overestimate it. But if you did want to, this is the point where you would, if you did want to see the effect of increasing your service credit for uh, making a service credit purchase, you could use the checkbox, one of these checkboxes here to do that. Okay, and then you hit generate, and you end up with this PDF retirement benefit estimate. Now, this will get saved in your member direct account, so you'll always be able to go back in and access it. But I also suggest downloading it to your device to save it in that secondary place. And you'll see that it's 4 pages. The first page has your estimated monthly benefit. The second page has some of the data that it used to calculate that benefit. Pages 3 through 4 talk about the pay periods that it's using to give you your salary estimate. And so, just to zoom in on page 1, what you're looking at is the table titled Your Estimated Monthly Benefit. And for right now, as a new employee or as a mid-career employee, I suggest just navigating by this estimate right here, the unmodified option. What it is giving you is that when you go to retire, you're gonna have the opportunity to choose among these 5 different options, and they all give you a little bit different weight between what you get as a retiree and what your continuance beneficiary would get after your death. Um, and so if we're giving the beneficiary more, you get less. So that's kind of how it works. Um, Most people end up choosing the unmodified option anyway. So you can kind of just look at that, to navigate and do your planning right now. If you do want to understand the way the different options work, I'm not going to take a deep dive into that now. But if you go to acera.org/options, it does have an explanation of each of the options. But for your purposes of retirement planning, I would just navigate by this number for now. And somebody's asking that projection would be using the salary for today since we don't know what our earning will be in 10 years, for instance. Yes, correct. So if your retirement is 10 years from now, it's most likely going to be that your highest period of pay is going to be toward the end of your career. And so it's going to assume that you're going to get paid more then, but it's going to take your last pay period on file and fill in those, if you're in tier 4, those 3 years worth of pay periods that it needs to make the projection. And you can see if you look at page 2 what the salary amount is that it's using for the calculation. Now, if you do want to, if you like math and you want to just estimate some inflation in there, inflationary amounts, cost of living increases for your salary, you can do that with this checkbox here. You click the checkbox and you increase the salary. So run the estimator one time, see what the salary is, and then run it again with the same scenario, click the checkbox and increase the salary by your inflation projection. And then you can see what your retirement allowance would be with that increased salary. Somebody asked, are you still earning service credit if you reach the cap salary? If you're talking about the 100% cap, which means that um, your retirement allowance will be 100% of your working salary, the answer would be no. Well, you kind of are earning service credit, but you don't get any benefit from it because additional service credit would not increase your retirement allowance because your retirement allowance is already equal to what your highest average monthly salary is. You have to work like 35 or 40 years to hit that. Now, if you're talking about hitting the salary, the tier 4 salary cap, the, yes, you do earn additional service credit, and that would, if you're talking about this one, yes, the more service credit you have, the higher your retirement allowance is going to be. Even though we have to keep the salary capped at this dollar amount, but it would increase your retirement allowance. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, somebody's asking when is the youngest age you can retire? Let me talk about this and maybe one more thing, and then we can take a 5 minute break. And then I see there's some other questions up here. I definitely want to get to those. So, let me help you understand when you are first eligible to retire. And to answer your question, what's the youngest age you can retire? Okay. So, we're talking about this milestone on the pension milestones chart here. What is the earliest you can retire? Another way to say it is, what is your retirement eligibility date? When do you become eligible to retire? If you're in tiers one, two, and three, there's three different combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. And I'll show you the tier four slide next. Okay, so tiers one, two, and three, your first combination that gets you to retirement eligibility is that you are at least age 50 and you have at least 5 years of service credit and you have at least 10 years of membership. Now, you can forget about this 10 years of membership thing. All these tiers closed over 10 years ago. You all, if you're in one of these tiers, already have 10 years of membership. Okay. So you have your age 50 and you have at least 5 years of service credit and you can retire from a SARA. Option two, you can retire at any age if you are a general member with at least 30 years of service credit or a safety member with at least 20 years of service credit. So you could retire younger than age 50 as long as you have that amount of service credit. Or option number three, you can retire at age 70 with any amount of service credit. So let's say that you stop working here before you achieve the 5 years of service credit that you would need under option one. Well, instead of retiring at age 50, you could wait until age 70 and you could draw a lifetime pension from a SARA based on that less than 5 years of service credit you have. Okay, for tier four, so that was tiers one, two, and three. For tier four, you have two combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. Option number one is that you are at least 52 years of age as a general member or 50 years of age as a safety member, and you can retire with a minimum of 5 years of service credit. Option number two is you're at least age 70 and you can retire with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years. Okay. Now, this 5 years of service credit, that includes um, service credit purchases, except all the service credit purchases except for the other agency service credit purchases. It would also include reciprocal service. So if you worked, like let's say Contra Costa County for a couple of years, came over and worked here for 3 years and established reciprocity, combined, if you have over the 5 years, that gets you to retirement eligibility. So that is the youngest age that you can retire. You're welcome. Okay, let's talk about some additional benefits that Acera offers. I see a few people asking about a question about beneficiaries, so we'll cover that now. Acera offers, in addition to the pension benefit, we offer these other benefits. There are some non-guaranteed benefits like medical, dental, vision, um, and then there are disability retirement. That's an option that you have if you become permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties. So if you want more info about that, you can check out the disability retirement info on our website. Also, death benefits. So let me talk about the first and third bullet points. The first one, the non-guaranteed benefits. These are extra benefits that Acera offers because the county started this reserve fund for these benefits back in the 80s so that we could offer these extra benefits to our retirees. Um, and our board of retirement, we have a separate board from the county. They administer this reserve fund, and their goal is to keep the fund sustainable so that they can continue offering medical, dental, vision, and other non-guaranteed benefits in perpetuity. So they keep a very close watch on the balance of that fund, the projections of that fund, and they set rules and benefit amounts so that the fund stays sustainable. So currently, the board has, they don't make a lot of changes very often, but they do look at this every year, and occasionally they will make little adjustments um, to make sure the fund stays sustainable. And the reason I'm telling you about this now, because, your retirement is probably ways away, is one of the rules that they do, one of the ways that they ensure the fund stays sustainable is they set a minimum amount of Acera service credit you need to qualify for most of the benefits, the medical, the healthcare benefits. And it starts at 10 years of a Sarah service credit. So you would get, if you retire with at least 10 years of a Sarah service credit, not reciprocal service credit, purchase service credit does count, but reciprocal does not. Um, you would get a dental subsidy, vision subsidy, the Medicare subsidy, and the first level of the medical subsidy, which is called the monthly medical allowance. And then if you did achieve 15 or 20 years of service credit, you would get even more of a medical subsidy. Okay. The reason I like to talk about this briefly now is because I think this has career planning implications because of the years of a service credit requirement to qualify, because it starts at 10 years. So if you miss that 10 years, um, that's a lot of money you're giving up. Like the medical, dental, vision, Medicare subsidies represent a lot of additional money on top of your pension that you would get, that you would be eligible for in retirement. So that's why I like to return to the pension milestone chart and just add a milestone for when the healthcare subsidies start at 10 years. So you may want to think when you're doing your career planning, okay, I've been here 9.5 years and I'm ready to go try, something else somewhere else, get a different job. Well, maybe you don't want to do that just yet. Maybe you want to stick around, get over that 10-year mark, and make sure that you at least get the medical, dental, vision, Medicare, or the dental, vision, Medicare, and the first level of the medical subsidy. Okay, so that's why I like to talk about this at this point. Otherwise, there's a lot of details about these. If you're curious, we have all those details on our website. The details will probably look completely different by the time you all retire. Um, but I do like to talk about that minimum amount of years of service credit. Okay, now let me talk about the death benefits and designating your beneficiary or beneficiaries for the death benefits and keeping them current. Okay. So the beneficiary, that is just somebody who gets benefits. That's what that word means. Your Acera beneficiary is the person you designate on our beneficiary designation form to receive your Acera death benefits after your death. Okay. Now, when you retire from Acera, at the point that you retire, you choose one of those five retirement allowance options, and there's a set of death benefits that come with each one of those options that you choose at that time. And then after you retire and you die, your beneficiary or beneficiaries would be eligible for that set of death benefits. Now, you'll learn about that when you get closer to retirement. You don't really need to understand it now. But what I do like to talk to you about is death benefits available to your family members should you die before you retire. What would those look like? Because Acera does offer death benefits to your beneficiaries. Okay. So if you currently work at the point of your death, let's say you die before you retire. Hopefully that didn't happen, but let's imagine that it does for the purposes of, life planning for your family. So, if you're currently working for one of our six employers, but you're not vested, and whenever I say not vested, I am including the people, vested or not vested. I am including the people who have reciprocity. So, if you're vested with reciprocity, you are included. So, if you're not yet vested with the 5 years of service credit, what your beneficiary or beneficiaries would receive is a return of your employee contribution account and all the interest that we have posted to it. And we do post interest every 6 months when the fund earns interest. Okay. And just as a side note, if you are planning to retire from Acera, the balance of your contribution account, it's not that important because you'll note that your contributions is not one of the three factors in the retirement formula. We don't consider that when we're calculating your retirement allowance. So if you are going to retire from a Sarah, you're just paying into the system and you can just, kind of set it and forget it. Okay. Now, so should you die before you retire and you're not vested and you're actively working here, they would get a refund of your contribution account plus 1 month of your salary for each year of service, up to 6 months worth of your salary. So if you've already been working here for 4 years, for example, they would also get 4 months of your salary. Okay. Now, if you are vested, your beneficiaries would receive a choice. You don't designate this in advance. They get a choice of options one, two, or three. Option one is the same: return of the contribution account, refund of the contribution account, 1 month of salary for each year of service, up to 6 months worth of salary. Option two is a monthly survivor's allowance to a qualified beneficiary only. That's spouse, domestic partner, minor children. But hang on to that, hang on to questions about that because you'll see on the next slide that um, I'm gonna expand the people who you can name as a beneficiary. Option three is kind of a hybrid of options one and two. There is a lump sum payment and then a reduced survivor's allowance. Okay, so I showed you that. Now you can kind of forget about this slide because there's this slide which offers an enhanced version of these choices. The reason that it offers an enhanced version is because you make an advanced death benefit election on your beneficiary designation form. Now, if you're new and you have not yet filled out your Sarah Welcome form, you will designate beneficiaries on your Sarah Welcome form and you will get the opportunity to check the box for the advanced death benefit election. If you're not new and you've already done this, great. If you haven't done it or you don't remember if you've done it, you can fill out your beneficiary designation form again and check the box. And I'll show that to you in just a second. But what happens is if you do check that box on the beneficiary form, what it does is it makes it so that any beneficiary you name, it doesn't have to be spouse, domestic partner, or minor children. It can be anybody. You can leave a lifetime benefit to, a lifetime survivor's allowance. They will get paid a monthly payment every month for the rest of their life. So there's really no, and there's no downside to making this election. Okay, so everyone who is an active member should make this election. Let me show you how to do it. To read more about it, you go to acera.org/ADV. For the form, the shortcut to the beneficiary designation form, you go to acera.org/BEN. Okay. Now you're going to save the form to your device. You're going to complete all the fields. You're going to check the box, print and sign the form, follow the instructions. Let me just show that to you real fast so you get a view of that. Okay. So you go to acera.org/BEN, which is a shortcut for the beneficiary designation form. Here's the form. It's a PDF. Okay. Your first step, click the download button, download it to your device. Okay. Your next step is to find it on your device and then you fill it out. You can electronically fill it out except for the signature. Okay. So you put in your own information. You say your marriage status, and then you name beneficiaries. Somebody's asking if it can be more than one beneficiary. Yes. Okay. So there's actually three sets of fields for primary beneficiary and three sets of fields for contingent beneficiary. So you put all those in. Contingent beneficiary is if you happen to, like you and your spouse is your primary and you both die on the same day or something, then it would go to your contingent beneficiary. Or if your primary beneficiary dies before you do and you forget to fill this out again and then you die, then it would go to your contingent. It's always good to name contingent beneficiaries. Okay, now all you do is you scroll down to page 4. Is that page 4? Page 6. Section 4. And you check this box. I elect the advanced death benefit election. There is no disadvantage to making this election, it says. Everyone should do this. If you don't remember if you did it, you can't look in your account. We haven't figured that out yet. You can see in your member direct account that you have designated a beneficiary, but it doesn't say one way or the other whether you check the box. You can call us and we'll tell you if you checked it, or you can email us in member direct. The other way to do it is just to fill out the form again and submit it. And every time you submit one of these, we throw out the old one and we just use the new one, basically. And then there's more info about it. So you check the box. If you have a spouse or state registered domestic partner or Alameda County domestic partner, they do need to sign this page. It's just how the law works. If you don't, you have to select one of the boxes. And then you print it out. So then at this point, you hit the print button, you sign it, and then there are 5 different options to submit it. And there are electronic options. You can scan it back in and upload it in your member direct account to us. So you don't have to get the mail involved, or there's other options. Okay, so that's how that works. The way to find out if you've already done this is to give us a call or send us an email in member direct. And we'll at some point we're going to figure out how to be able to show that to you in your member direct account, but we haven't figured it out yet. Okay, and okay, so then sticking with the topic of should you die before retirement, if you're not working here anymore, you've become what we call a deferred member, which means you stopped working for your Acera covered employer, but you have not taken a refund of your contribution account, which means you're still a member. You've stopped working here, you're still a member, and you've deferred your retirement to a later date. And we call you a deferred member. Okay. You would, if you die as a deferred member, your beneficiaries would just receive a refund of your contribution account. They would not be eligible for the lifetime benefit. Okay. So there's more information about those benefits at acera.org/death. Keep your beneficiary designations current. You can submit that beneficiary designation form however often you want to redesignate your beneficiaries. Um, you can always find it at acera.org/forms, but like I was saying, the shortcut is acera.org/ben to go right to the form. And you can always check your beneficiaries. If you log into your Acera account and you click the beneficiaries link, you can see who your beneficiaries are. And if you ever go in there and you see that your beneficiaries are old, like it's your spouse from three spouses ago, you're probably going to want to go ahead and update your beneficiaries by filling out the beneficiary designation form again. Okay, let's move into our last two topics, career planning options and making a retirement planning picture. And we have just enough time to do both of those. Okay, so what I mean by career planning options is you're going to not work here at some point in the future. Either by you're going to retire or you're just going to, you're going to quit. Maybe some other thing happens and you stop working for your employer. What are your options regarding Acera? Well, option number one is that if you are eligible, you can retire from Acera. You can just go ahead and retire, okay, and start drawing that lifetime pension. If you do that, you earn service credit right up until your retirement. We will convert your sick leave. You'll receive half of it up to a cap as service credit, so that'll boost your retirement a little bit. You can work after retirement for anywhere you want to go work that is not one of our six employers. We don't care. We're going to continue paying you your pension for the rest of your life, or you can come back to work for an Acera employer and you can continue to receive your retirement payments. There are some restrictions around that. You don't earn any additional retirement credit. You're going to want to read about the restrictions around that. Or your other option is that if you do leave, if you do retire from Acera, you start taking the Acera payments, and then you come back to work for one of our Acera employers. You can pause your retirement payments, and then you can earn basically a second retirement, so you can increase your amount of retirement, and then you retire again a second time, and your original payments pick back up, and then we restart the first payments also. So that's a new option that only happened within the last like year and a half. That option number two. Okay. So that's your first option when you stop working here is to retire. Now, maybe when you stop working here, you're not eligible to retire yet. So what would your options be? Or maybe you have other thoughts about like continuing your career elsewhere, you have a different trajectory. So if you don't immediately retire when you stop working here, what are your options regarding Acera? Well, you kind of have three sub options if you don't retire immediately. So I'm going to label them A, B, and C. Option A is that you can leave your contributions on deposit with Acera, and that is becoming what we call a deferred member. So I already mentioned that. B is you can establish reciprocity with another California pension system, or C, you can take a refund of your employee contributions and interest. So let me talk more about each one of these. Okay. So let's say that you are deferring. That means that there's going to be a gap between your last day on payroll and your retirement date if you ultimately choose to retire. Okay. Now, if you're choosing option A and you're becoming a deferred member, you're not taking a refund of your contribution account. You're leaving your contributions on deposit. That means you're still an Acera member. The word member is in there. You're a deferred member. Interest continues to accumulate. There's no negative interest. People ask me what I mean by that. It means that We never take money out of your account once we put it in your account. So if in the short term we have a negative 6 months where we have a negative return in a Sarah's fund, you don't have a negative return in your fund. We don't take any money out. Okay. We only put money into your account. And we will continue to pay interest as long as you leave your money in there. And there, with the type of interest that we have earned historically over the years, I cannot think of any place that you can park your money that has zero risk and that gets the type of interest that we earn. If you do want to see how much interest we have earned historically, of course, what is past doesn't necessarily predict the future, but you can type in acera.org/interest, which is a shortcut, and it takes you right to this chart. And you can see if you look at the third column, this is the middle column is our 6 month interest rates that actually get posted to member accounts. The third column is combining the two 6 month rates each year so that you can compare it with other financial instruments because those are usually measured in the amount of interest you earn in a year. And so you can see that on an annual basis, we tend to earn over 7% per year. And so, like I said, you leave your money on deposit with us by becoming a deferred member, and you would continue earning the interest that we pay with no risk. So it's kind of amazing. You can also retire later out of deferred status. So one major reason that people will become a deferred member is that they're done working here, but they're not eligible to retire yet. And so you just need to wait for that minimum retirement age. So you stop working here, you can retire later out of deferred status. Or another option, if you defer, is that you can come back to work and earn more money toward retirement later. So you kind of would earn more credit toward retirement later. Or you could be refunded at any time. So let's say that you stop working here and you don't know what you want to do yet. Do I want to leave my money with a Sarah? Do I want to take it out? Well, you don't have to decide immediately. You can just do nothing, leave it on deposit. We'll continue paying the interest. Later, you can decide to take a refund if you want to. There's more info at acera.org/defer. I recommend reading that if you are considering becoming a deferred member. There are some good reasons to become a deferred member. There are not so good reasons to become a deferred member. And so you can read more about that there. Somebody's asking, do you pay taxes on your retirement? You do because you pay into Acera on a tax deferred basis. So you got to pay taxes on disbursements coming out. And somebody's asking if you came into Acera and have reciprocal with another pension, your reciprocal service credit is not counted for the medical, dental, vision. It is not. Somebody's asking about the half. Is there a cap on the half of the sick leave conversion where you get half of your sick leave as service credit? There is. It's in your MOU, your Memorandum of Understanding, so you can read about that cap in there. And then somebody's asking, how are the taxes paid? Is it taken out by Acera or it's paid, just like normal. Your Acera pension check, it's basically like a paycheck for life, like the title of this webinar. But you're just receiving a check and you're not doing work anymore. So we will withhold taxes from your check. There's not a special set of tax rates for retirees. It's just, the regular tax filing with the IRS. And we will withhold federal and California taxes for you. And you can set those withholdings. Okay, so that's option A when you stop working here. Become a deferred member. Option B is that you can establish reciprocity with another retirement system in California, another pension system. Okay. So to establish reciprocity, you can link many of the different public retirement systems in California with Acera. So there's lots of Acera City pension systems that can be linked with us. All of the counties in California, state jobs, any jobs, the California state jobs use the CalPERS state pension system, not the UC system. We don't have reciprocity with the UC system or any agency in California. Sometimes they're too small of an agency and they just use CalPERS as their retirement system. So if they use CalPERS, we can link with them. And there's a full list at acera.org/reciprocity. And the benefits of reciprocity, like why would you want to establish reciprocity? Well, it's for these reasons. Okay. The first is that the service credit you earn in all the systems combined gets used for the vesting and retirement eligibility among all of the systems. So, for example, let's say you're tier four, you work for 2 years over in Contra Costa County. Then you come over to Acera, you work for 3 years, and you've linked the systems together. So you have established reciprocity between Contra Costa's pension system and Acera. Okay. And let's say you're a general member and you're age 52 at that time. Well, as we've seen earlier, 52 is the minimum retirement age. And now, because you have linked the systems together, you have 2 years over there, you have 3 years here. And if you link them together, that gives you 5 years, you're eligible to retire. And if you hadn't linked them together, you wouldn't be eligible to retire from either system. Okay. So reciprocity synergizes your membership between different retirement systems. And this is one of the synergistic effects is this combined service credit gets you over the vesting and retirement eligibility requirements. The second synergistic effect is that the average salary that you earn under any reciprocal system is used by all the systems when they calculate your retirement. So we're all going to calculate a separate retirement for you. Okay, now let's say, let me stick with that similar example. Let's say you were making $20 an hour over in Contra Costa County and you worked there for 2 years. You come over to Acera, you find a higher paying position. Now you're making $35 an hour over here. Okay. That's a much higher salary. Okay. And let's say you work here for 10 years and then you go to retire. Well, when you retire, we're both going to do a calculation. Acera is going to use your 10 years of service credit here. We're going to use your higher salary that you're earning here. We're going to use your age factor percentage from our set of age factor percentages for your tier here. And we're going to send you a check. Contra Costa County, over there, you worked for 2 years over there with a lower salary, but they're going to see that you have reciprocity. They're going to call us and we're going to give them your higher salary here, and they're going to use that when they do their calculation, and they're going to put your 2 years over there in your higher salary and your age factor percentage over there. You're going to get a lot more from them than you would have had you not had you than you would have if you had not established reciprocity. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but establishing reciprocity will maximize your retirement allowance among all of the systems that you have linked together because of this salary, this salary principle. So one of the ways that I mean it, you kind of it could be a little onerous to find a new job under a different county. You may have to do some commuting, but that is a option that you do have to increase your retirement allowance is to find a higher paying position in a different public agency that we have reciprocity with. And you do have that right and that ability with reciprocity. And then the third synergistic effect of reciprocity is it could put you, let me see here, there's four. It could put you in an earlier tier if your entry date in a previous linked together system is before the cutoff date for our tiers. You could go into an earlier tier, and that could have you paying a lower contribution rate. Not every time, but sometimes it could have you paying a lower contribution rate if you are put into an earlier tier. And to qualify for reciprocity, you need to do just a few things. The first is that every system that you're trying to link together, when you leave one system, you leave your contributions on deposit there. You do not take a refund. You have to defer your retirement, defer your membership with each system that you're going to link together, and then you become an active member in the new system. Also, you can have no more than a 6-month gap between terminating the first job and starting employment in the next job. If there's more than a 6-month gap, you cannot establish reciprocity. And then you can have no more than a 12 weeks of overlapping service, which means some people will go on vacation leave at the end of one job and immediately start a new job. So they're on payroll for two jobs at once. Just don't do that at all. Have no overlapping service. They're going to cash you out for your vacation anyway, and just start the new job immediately and just make a clean break from one, start the other one, and you're good. And then you have to retire from all the systems on the same day. Okay, now let me just mention a few things here. Some people will, regarding purchasing service credit versus establishing reciprocity. If you leave one system and you enter the next system and it's before that 6 month gap, it's within 6 months, and you can establish reciprocity, it's probably going to be more financially cheaper for you when you run the numbers to establish the reciprocity and link the systems together rather than trying to not establish reciprocity and take a refund from the other system and buy that as a Sarah service credit because those other prior public service credit purchases can be pretty expensive. Um, let's say that you have work for another public agency and you're already eligible for their pension because you worked there for long enough. You can choose to establish reciprocity or not. If you do establish reciprocity when you enter a SARA, you are already over the vesting requirement for a SARA. So that's good. Sometimes people will have credit with another public agency, and it is enough to collect a pension from them one day, but they have more than a 6 month gap, so they cannot establish reciprocity. And then they ask, well, should I take a refund from that system? You can run the numbers yourself, but it's probably going to be more advantageous for you to leave your contributions on deposit there and just collect their pension one day when you become eligible for it. Um, if you want help with running through those scenarios, you can always contact our call center. And there's people in our call center during business hours. All they do is answer your questions. Okay, finally, your third option. Oh, and somebody's asking, is there a deadline to establish reciprocity? So yeah, this is interesting. I think the deadline for establishing reciprocity is that you have to just do it before you retire. So you don't have to do it immediately. So you can think about it. We do offer you the option of doing it immediately when you fill out your Acera welcome form. You can do it immediately, but if you want to read more about it before you choose, just go to acera.org/reciprocity and you can look at all the ins and outs of it. I think probably in most cases, if you are eligible to establish it, it will be financially advantageous to do so. There could be a few kind of outlier cases where it's not, but you can read through all the ins and outs of it. Okay, and then there's a question. You got laid off from a previous county in California due to funding issues and got hired with Alameda within 2 weeks, but it was on a temporary basis. And then when you got your permanent position, I guess it was more than the 6 months, and they said you couldn't do reciprocity. So if that's the case, if they told you that it was more than the 6 months and you couldn't establish reciprocity, then you can't. But feel free to check with us again. It's very rarely we'll give out incorrect information. So definitely feel free to contact my colleagues again at acera.org/contact, and you can write into us or give us a call, and they can walk you through that. Okay, and then let's see here. Your third option, should you terminate employment but not retire immediately, is to take a refund. Option C. When you do that, you're taking a refund of your contribution account, which is everything you paid into Acera through your employee contributions only, not the employer contributions. You never get a refund of those. Employee contributions and interest. If you do that and you're looking for cash and you're not trying to roll it over into another pre-tax retirement account, you're probably going to lose about a third of your money immediately to taxes and penalties. If you want to avoid that, you can roll the money over into a pre-tax retirement account, and we can walk you through doing that. Refunds take time, so it's not immediate. And when you're doing a refund, you waive all your rights to Acera benefits. You're saying, cancel my membership. I don't want to be an Acera member anymore. I don't want the lifetime pension. I don't want access to the death benefits, the healthcare benefits, nothing. I'm just going to take my money and go elsewhere. So That may be the most financially advantageous thing for some people. For many people, it will not be. And let me remind everyone that if you do, instead of taking a refund, if you do, if you take option A and become a deferred member and then you retire later and you start drawing that lifetime pension, we're going to refund you all of that money anyway through monthly pension payments in the first 3 to 5 years of your retirement. And then everything after that for the rest of your life. This is an amazing bonus, sort of one way to think about it, that you get that you would not get if you just took a refund. So whenever I run numbers, in a lot of cases, probably the majority of cases, it's you earn way more money over your lifetime if you retire from a SARA than you would if you take a refund. So that's just my little pitch for being very careful, if you're taking a refund and you're canceling your SARA membership. Okay, so now we know what your options are when you should you leave a SARA, or I mean, for when you leave your employer, and whether you're going to retire immediately from a SARA or you're going to continue somewhere else in your career by establishing reciprocity, or you're just going to take a refund and take your money and run. So let's talk about making a retirement planning picture, okay? And in this picture, we're going to assume that you are going to retire from a SARA and draw the lifetime pension, okay? So we're going to return to this slide here. We're going to take this peek into the future, and we're going to see if you are on a trajectory to achieve the 80% income replacement that financial planners tell you you will need to maintain your standard of living in retirement. So just let me remind you that what this means is that financial planners are saying that whatever your salary was before you retire, your retirement income needs to be at least 80% of that to maintain your standard of living once you retire, because you're not going to get your working paycheck anymore. So, what types of income can you expect in retirement? Well, if you retire from a SARA, you can expect a lifetime pension, the paycheck for life. And you could lump any other public pensions you have into that category. Social Security. If you're eligible to collect Social Security, you can lump that in there. Okay. So, will those two things alone replace 80% of your salary? Well, it's hard to know if you just look um, at those estimates. Okay. Do you need to save additional money? If so, how much? And if you are going to save additional money, where should you save it? Well, let's answer that question right now using some online calculators. Okay, so here's how you do this. Step number one, you get some estimates. You get your Acera estimate. Okay, you can, get out a scratch sheet of paper and write it. When you go through this, you just, keep track, or you can just they're all digital estimates, so you just download it to your device to keep track. Okay, you get your Acera estimate, you get your Social Security estimate. So again, the Acera estimate, you go to acera.org, you log in, you use the estimated benefit, you put in your plausible retirement scenario, you click generate, you end up with this Acera retirement benefit estimate. Okay, and then you're going to use, at this point, I still suggest using the unmodified option. Okay, so this gives you an estimate of what your Acera pension will be should you retire in that particular scenario. Now, I'm going to show you a scenario for retiring at age 62. And whenever you all go and do this, I recommend start with the retirement age of 62. And the reason I recommend that is because when you do your Social Security estimate, that is the earliest you can collect Social Security at age 62. So if you do take the early Social Security payment at age 62, you can immediately put that in there as retirement income. And if you were going to retire earlier than that, you would not be able to do that until you turn age 62. So if you do the scenario for age 62 first, you can see where you land, and then you can think about dialing it back to younger and younger ages, keeping in mind that you're not going to get to collect Social Security until age 62. Okay. So step one is get your Acera estimate. Then you get your Social Security estimate. You go to the Social Security estimator, ssa.gov/estimator. This is actually an old screenshot. It looks a little bit different right now when you do it. But what it does is it will give you an estimate for retiring at the earliest age you can retire, which is 62. Then what it's called a full retirement age, which is usually 67, but it could be a different age for you. And then if you wait a little bit and you retire at age 70 or later, and then you can play around with it in there and it'll give you all different ages between 62 and older. Okay. So like I said, and you save that to your device. So like I said, I'm going to stick with doing a scenario for age 62 first off. Okay. So what I've done here is I've gotten my Acera estimate for age 60 for a scenario where I'm retiring at age 62. Okay. And I've saved that to my device. I've gotten my Social Security estimate and I can see how much I would collect from Social Security at age 62. Okay. So it's $3,007 from Acera, $2,046 from Social Security if I were to retire at age 62. Okay. Now the question is that going to be 80, am I going to achieve 80% income replacement with that? I don't need to actually do any math because there are these free retirement calculators out there that will allow you to plug in your numbers and it will just tell you. And so you don't really have to do anything. You don't have to like, start a spreadsheet or get out scratch paper or anything. I'm going to walk you through the Vanguard calculator because I think it works the best. The ones that work the best are the ones that will allow you that work for the best for you as government employees, allow you to put in a pension amount and a Social Security amount. And then it will tell you if you need to save additional money. So I'm going to walk you through the Vanguard calculator. All you do is you go to acera.org, you go under members, and the third one down, planning your future retirement income. Okay. And I just want to say that I just made this video here. So this is a brand new video, and this is kind of a little bit longer walkthrough of that. I'm going to keep this one kind of short because we're running out of time. But if you do want to walk through it step by step, we have this new video here, and it will walk you through it in 20 minutes. So I'm going to scroll down here, and we have linked some of the calculators here for you that allow you to put in your pension and Social Security. These are all free calculators. These companies make these free because they want you to calculate how much additional to save, and then they want you to invest your, savings with them. But you don't have to do that. You can just, use their calculator for free. And then I'm going to suggest in a minute, if you do want to save additional money, the most powerful way to do it is in your 457B account. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the Vanguard Retirement Calculator. I'm going to put in a scenario. Let's say that I am age 35, which I am not, but we'll just do that for the scenario. Age 35, and let's say that I want to retire at age 62. Okay. So you're just going to plug in the numbers that fit your scenario. This is asking for your annual salary. So I'm just going to say it's 85,000 for this example. Then it's going to ask you how much you currently save per year out of your annual income. Let's say that you don't save anything. It's zero. It's totally fine. So we're about to figure out whether you want to save some. And then it asks you how much you have already saved for retirement. And if that again is zero, just put in zero. If you do have an amount, like if you have, a little bit set aside, you can plug that in here. But if you don't stress out at this point because, we're figuring it out and we're using this calculator to figure it out. Okay, this percentage is how much income replacement, what percentage income replacement you want to target. A good place to start when you're playing with the calculator is 80%. I recommend doing 80% first, but then see what happens if you target 90%, 85%, 95%, 100%. Our 457B expert, Gene Hilliard, who I'm about to turn this presentation over to in a few minutes, is going to try to get you pointed at 100% income replacement, just to be safe. But if you want to, just start at kind of the base level, you could pick 80. Now the next one is an expected annual return. So the idea here is that if the calculator tells us that we want to save additional money beyond what we're putting into our Sarah pension and Social Security, if we want to save additional money, the idea here, the assumption here is that we are going to put that money somewhere that has the opportunity to earn interest over long periods of time. in a probably diverse, portfolio. And if we put our additional savings into some place like the 457B plan, where we can earn interest over time, what is our expected annual return? Now, I think that for the purposes of this calculator, 5% is probably pretty conservative. 6% might be like moderately conservative. 7% might be like moderate. 7% is Sarah's targeted amount of return that we expect on our investments. So I'm going to just, for this example, do moderately conservative at 6%. And then the nice thing about this calculator is that it allows you to put in the Social Security and a Sarah pension amounts. Okay. So I'm going to put in the $2,046 from my Social Security estimate for age 62. I'm going to put in the $3,007 for my Acera estimate at age 62, and I'm going to hit calculate. Okay, and then what this is going to do is it's going to show me if I have a savings gap, meaning that over here, this bar is telling me how much the calculator expects my expenses are going to be when I retire. And then over here, it's telling me how much it is projecting my income is going to be in retirement. And if this amount is less than this amount, and this is signified by this bar on the bar graph being shorter than this bar, we have a gap here. My expected income is lower than what my expenses are expected to be if I'm trying to achieve 80% income replacement. So what this is telling me is if that's the case, I'm probably going to need to include additional retirement savings. I'm going to want to have additional retirement savings as one of my income sources when I retire. Now that's in the future. Okay, that's a long ways away. So what I can do now is I can figure out how much additional to start saving now. And this calculator will tell me. So currently I have zero. Okay, this bar is the Social Security income. This is the pension income. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the results and add some annual savings. Let's say that I save $1,000 per year of my income. Okay, and I'm going to recalculate. Okay, so now it has added a retirement savings income to the bar, but it's not quite getting me where I need to go. So I'm going to edit the results again. What happens if I save $4,000 per year? I'm going to hit calculate. Okay, it's getting closer. Now we're in the $5,600 range. I'm going to add another $500. Okay, so now I've hit it and I maybe overshot it slightly, but that's fine. So what this is telling me is that because the bars are relatively equal, this is projecting that I will have enough retirement income through my pension benefit, my Social Security, and my additional retirement savings to maintain my standard of living, to pay my expenses. If this were my scenario where I save an additional $4,500 a year between ages 35 and 62 when I retire, and this is my salary, and I do achieve a 6% annual return on that $4,500. I put it somewhere where I do make that annually over a long period of time. Okay. And that might sound like a lot. $4,500 per year, that's 5% of my annual income. Okay. But what I like to do is break it down into pay periods to see how much it really is per pay period. So 4,500 divided by 26 pay periods, $173. Okay, so now it sounds a little more manageable, $173. Okay, so now you think, can I find this amount of room? And this is just one example. The numbers might look completely different for you when you go to do the calculator, but in this example, I would think, can I find $173 worth of room in my paycheck? Except I don't really have to find $173 worth of my take-home pay if I decide to do this on a pre-tax basis and put it in the 457B account. It won't be a dollar for dollar decrease to my take-home pay. And I could actually, it will actually be about 75% of it, just as so what if I multiply it by 0.75? So about $130 would be the decrease to my take-home pay that I would be looking at. And so I think Can I find $130 worth of room in my paycheck at this point? And if I can start now and I can save that money between now and when I plan to retire in that scenario of age 62, I will have achieved the 80% income replacement that I'm targeting. Okay. Maybe you can't find whatever it's telling you. Maybe you can't find that much room in your paycheck. The minimum that you can start with is $20 if you open a 457B account. Okay. But now that you know, like if you do the calculator, if you go through this exercise and it does say that you need to save additional money, and it tells you how much to save, then you're going to want to start thinking, where should I save my additional money? Okay. Now, the probably the best place to save it is in the 457B plan because you can save on a tax deferred basis, and that gives you some um, acceleration to your retirement savings. And it's kind of like a set it and forget it type thing. And I'm going to let Gene Hilliard, the expert on that, tell you more about that. But the last thing that I want to tell you before I turn it over to him is kind of the big picture of this exercise is that these are all projections. Like this is not an exact picture of the future. All I'm trying to say, all I'm trying to do right here is say, rather than waiting until the few years before retirement to look at your pension and Social Security and and add those together and think, okay, can I live on this amount? If you plug those amounts into one of these calculators now, it will just go ahead and tell you. Like you don't have to wait till you get there. It'll just go ahead and tell you if you're going to need additional savings. And it will even tell you, it will give you a projection of how much to save. So if you did immediately start saving that amount or some lesser amount, what I suggest is you just if you start saving less, once you start at a certain point, like let's say you start with $20 per pay period. Okay, once you have um, gotten comfortable with the lower take home pay by the $20, maybe crank it up $10. Maybe crank it up $20. Just keep cranking it up over time. Maybe it'll take you a few years to get to that point until when you do the calculator, your per pay period savings amount is about equal to what the calculator is telling you. Then you come back every 6 months or come back every year, do the whole thing again, get the projections, plug them into the calculator. Once you get used to it, it'll take you like 5 minutes. And every time you do that, you can readjust. And I think you'll find that if you save that additional money, if you start now and you understand what the savings gap is and you start saving that additional amount and you readjust the calculations over time, I think you'll find that when you actually get to your projected retirement date, you will have achieved the income replacement that you were originally targeting. So that's my spiel for um, planning out your future retirement income starting now. Okay, like I said, there's that video over at acera.org/planning. That was the page that I showed you. This planning your future retirement, acera.org/planning. It does walk you through it step by step whenever you do it yourself. And like I said, there is this video that also is a video walkthrough of this whole process. Okay, at this point, I would like to turn it over to Gene Hilliard. Gene Hilliard is a financial educator who Alameda County has hired and has been hiring for many years to provide you all with education on this additional thing that you can do, which is to save additional money in a 457B account. And like I was saying at the beginning of the presentation, the 457B account is kind of like a 401k, but for government workers. So he is contracted by the county to do this education. If you don't work for the county, if you work for one of our other five employers, 99% of this information is still going to apply to you because all of you across our six employers do have the ability to save additional money in a 457B account. Okay, so Gene, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me, Mike?
I can hear you.
All right, perfect. Perfect.
Hello.
There we are. Finally got my camera working.
Good to see you.
Hopefully you guys don't mind. All right, let's see. So we want to share. Let's see. Boom, boom, and let's see. There we go. How am I looking, Mike?
Looks good.
All
Take it
right.
away.
All right, let's get started. Well, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. My name is Gene Hilliard, Vice President, Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group. We're a financial services company in Oakland. Um, we were hired, as Mike mentioned, roughly 16 years ago by the county, and at the time, Prudential, now Empower, to provide retirement planning, investment guidance, and education. I have 20 plus years experience in the investment game, if you will, helping my clients create wealth and maintain that wealth throughout their lifetime of kids and grandkids. And like I said, I'm a retirement counselor. And my goal as a retirement counselor is to help each and every one of you maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. What do I mean by that? Mike mentioned earlier, I like to help my clients shoot for 100%. Now, there's arguments to be made, and it is true. Most financial planners say about 70, 80% of your pre retirement income is all you need. But I'm big on let's shoot for 100, settle for 80. Okay. More is always better. Where should you begin saving your money towards retirement? You're halfway there for many of you in terms of a Sarah. We want to close that gap and get you to, like I said, to 100%. One of the best places to make that happen is in your deferred comp plan, a 457B. So I'm going to take roughly 30 minutes just outlining the details of deferred comp and make the case, make the argument for you guys to invest in that program. Okay, so here are some of the key topics. We're going to talk a little bit about retirement income, the benefits of it, of saving through your plan, and also how to enroll. Okay. Where will your income come from in retirement? Okay. We already know, like we said, Sarah and other retirement plans, but really it's important to focus on exactly what you're going to be doing in retirement. What's the plan? How much money will you need? So you want to kind of brainstorm. Now, many of you, you're new employees, you're new in your career, maybe you're 20 years out from retirement. You may not even have a clue as to what you're going to be doing, but you at least want to be thinking about it. Are you traveling? Are you going to spend more time with your friends and family? Are you going to buy a vacation home? Right? Are you going to be, flying in and out of the country in retirement? So, what exactly is the plan? How much is that going to cost you? Now, here's that famous slide where we talk about how much you need, 70 to 90%. And as I mentioned earlier, let's shoot for 100, save for shoot for 100, settle for 70 to 90 if we have to. Where will your income come from? Where is that 70 to 90% typically going to come from? Social Security. Mike did an excellent job of outlining where you go to obtain a Social Security estimate. Pensions and retirement. Mike also did an excellent job of talking about where to go in a SARA to roughly get an estimate from there. How much do you have in your current deferred comp account if you have it? Okay. So you want to look at that. Income from assets. Do you have vacation property? Do you anticipate inheriting property from grandparents, parents, etc.? Do you have investment accounts that are generating interest, etc.? So you want to take a look at that. That's where some of your income is going to come from. Are you going to be doing a little bit of working when you retire? Some of you probably will come back as a retired annuitant, right? But these are the different buckets in terms of where you should anticipate getting your income from. So let's talk about, one of the benefits of deferred comp. Uh, One of the pros of deferred comp is that it's easy. Money comes directly out of your paycheck, like clockwork. Every paycheck whatever dollar amount you suggested or wanted to contribute to deferred comp or percent of your salary automatically comes out of your paycheck and it's deposited. That's a great wealth building tool because I'm sure many of you have heard the way to create your net worth is to make sure it's automated. Make sure that you're paying yourself first. Always pay yourself first, and then whatever the remaining amount is, that use that to pay your bills. So that's a great wealth building strategy. How much should you contribute? That Vanguard calculator is a great tool to use because it includes your pension and includes other retirement savings, etc. So use that tool. Have no issue with that. There are a number of different tools. Deferred Comp, Empower has a tool on their website. Whatever you feel more comfortable with to get a determine how much you're going to need to save. Now, on average, I'd say by and large, people should save roughly 10% of your salary into deferred comp. Now, that's including a Sarah. Many of you, I don't know exactly how much you guys contribute to a Sarah, but I'm guessing it's somewhere in the 5% range. So if you were to contribute an additional 5% into deferred comp, 9 times out of 10, that's going to get you where you need to go, assuming you're starting early in your career. Okay. What are the max amounts that you can contribute in 2025? I'm going to talk a little bit about the 2026 numbers. I'm a little foggy on them, but I'm pretty close. But for 2025, if you're under 50, you can contribute $23,500 max per year. If you're 50 and over, the IRS will allow an additional contribution of 7,500. And because of the Secure Act, if you're 60, 61, 62, 63, your catch-up contribution can be as high as 11,250. And there's also a 3-year catch-up if you're really looking to supercharge your retirement. You're in the neighborhood of 5 years from retirement. You can contribute an additional, or the max amount is $47,000 per year. That's through the 3-year catch-up. What are the 2026 numbers? If you're under 50, it is, I believe it's an initial $1,000. So it's 24,500. If you're 50 and over, that additional catch-up contribution amount is 75. No, it's 8,000. $8,000. That went up $500. And the 60 through 63 catch-up contribution amount is 11,250. Okay. Now, the one thing that I want to caution you folks of, if you're 50 and over and you're interested in taking advantage of these catch-up contribution amounts, there has been a change in the rules in terms of Secure Act. And it is my understanding if your adjusted gross income exceeds $145,000, the catch-up contribution amount must be contributed to the Roth version of deferred comp. So you're unable to contribute that additional catch-up contribution amount into the pre-tax bucket. It's got to go to the Roth if your AGI exceeds $145,000. Reach out to me later with an appointment if you want more details. But I believe the county is drafting, if they haven't already, drafting an email to send out to each and every one of you that is affected. So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of that for 2026. Okay, so let's dive into some additional details. Other plan highlights. There's no vesting schedule. 100% of the money that goes into your deferred comp account is yours. You don't have to stay with the county a certain number of years in order to reap the benefits of your deferred comp. But I will say you really don't have access to the money until you leave county service or retire from the county, other than borrowing from your deferred comp. Now, I'm not going to go into details about borrowing. If you have questions about borrowing from deferred comp, schedule an appointment with me. I'll give you some additional information. Okay, investments. There are roughly 15 core investments into deferred comp. If you want index funds, there's something in here for you. If you are a socially responsible investor, something in there for you. If you're interested in not taking on any risk whatsoever, there's an investment in here for you. So there's a full array of different investment options that you can participate in. Okay. Here are the roughly the three different ways you can add to your account. You can invest in your deferred comp on a pre-tax basis. That's where you're investing money. You're not paying taxes on the money. Money grows tax deferred until you retire. Or you can invest in the Roth version of deferred comp. Now, it is not a Roth IRA. It is a Roth 457. That's where you're investing money into your account. You're paying taxes on the contributions. So some of you are thinking, well, what's the benefit, Gene? Why would anybody want to do that? Well, the money grows tax free. So you're investing money, you're paying taxes, it grows tax free. So you avoid having to pay taxes on the earnings, provided that you're at least 59 and a half and the account's been open for at least 5 years. And many of you are going to probably hit that anyway. Okay. Unless, of course, you're safety and you're retiring before 59 and a half. So that could be a little problematic. So reach out to me. I can give you some more details on that. And then you can also contribute via rollover. You have an account at a different institution that's tax deferred. You want to roll that in, or you have a previous 457 401k that's idle, not making you any money. You can roll that money into deferred comp. I did talk about this a little bit. Pre-tax, you're investing money, avoiding the taxes on the front end. You pay them later when hopefully you're in a lower tax bracket. Most employees will find out that they're making less money in retirement. So the pre-tax version may make more sense. There's no guarantees there because we're talking tax rates that could change depending on Congress, depending on executive branch, etc. But if you believe that you'll potentially going to find yourself in a higher tax bracket when you retire, then maybe the Roth version of deferred comp makes more sense. You pay the taxes now, you avoid having to pay any taxes in the future. So that's the Roth. Okay. Going back here, you don't have to pick one or the other. Many employees do a little bit of both. Maybe you want to split it 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. It's up to you. Reach out to your accountant, reach out to your lawyer. You can reach out to me. I can give you some guidance in terms of which one of those options makes the most sense. The other advantage of investing in deferred comp, especially pre-tax, is your money grows much, much faster. You're not having to pay taxes on the growth as you go along. So your money works harder for you. So assuming that you can get a 6% rate of return over, say, a 12-year period, your money's going to double. And that's assuming you're not even contributing. Your money will double in 12 years if you get a 6% rate of return, and it will triple in 19 years, again, assuming you get a 6% rate of return. Okay? You're in charge here. You tell us how much you want to contribute. Can't go any lower than 20 bucks or 1.5% of your salary. You can't exceed the max, but you're in charge. You can start, you can stop. Um, it's up to you. You have a lot more flexibility in the investments, the amount you're contributing, etc. So it's a great tool. Once you've determined this is what I want to do, here I want to invest in deferred comp, you got to figure out exactly how you want to invest it. There are three different types of investors. You have a do it for me investor. You're the type of person, hey, I got enough stress with my own job. I want to kind of put this on autopilot. Who can I use to make this happen? Well, Fisher is a managed account program that was recently added to the program about a year, almost a year ago. Pay a little extra, they can pick the investments for you, and you're off and running. If you're the type of person, hey, I don't want to just give this person uh, all the latitude, et cetera, to grow my money, I want a little help, a little guidance, where there's a couple of tools there as well. You can use Fisher again. Fisher has another program. There's a Goal Maker program that you can use. Goal Maker is an award-winning asset allocation tool where you tell the system, I'm conservative, moderate, aggressive. You tell the system what year you anticipate retiring. So it's like a target date fund, and then you're off and running. And then obviously you can reach out to me, um, tell me your circumstances, situation, and I can help you craft a portfolio that makes sense for you and your family. And then you have it, you do it myself. You take a look at the core investments that are available in the program. You do your homework. You're looking at manager tenure. How long has that manager been managing that particular mutual fund? You're looking at expenses. You're looking at performance. And then you can choose a portfolio that makes sense for you. So you have the flexibility to either do it yourself or get some help, whatever the case may be. Okay. Quick introduction of Goalmaker, as I mentioned, investor style, when you plan on retiring, and then you get rebalancing, asset allocation, etc. Here's an example of a moderate portfolio. So as you can see, you got a little stable value, some fixed income, large, small, some international investments. And then occasionally your model may get a little out of whack. We may determine that you should have an 80-20 portfolio, 80% stock allocation, 20% bonds and cash. And let's say hypothetically the market's going crazy, your 80-20 is now 90-10. What rebalancing does is it gets you back to our intended asset allocation, which was the 80-20. So we sell and buy of that 90 and 10 to get you back to 80-20. More details on that. If you need some help with that, reach out to me, schedule an appointment. Okay. And we also have some adjustments that go on in with these particular accounts. We use kind of conventional wisdom. As you get closer and closer to retirement, your account gets more and more conservative. May make sense for you and your family. So you get all of that inside the Goldmaker portfolios. Okay. Uh, have you worked for a different government agency? You got a 457, 401k, 403b at a at another institution, feel free to roll that money in deferred comp if it makes sense. Now, I'm not just going to say you should arbitrarily do it. I think you should just do some homework. And I can help you with that. We can take a look at your previous plan, fees, expenses, performance. We could look at county fees, expenses, and performance, and then make a determination as to whether or not it makes sense to roll it in or leave it. Okay. But the option is certainly available to you. Quickly, distribution options, unlike a 401k, unlike a 403b, unlike an IRA, once you leave county service, you have access to your money immediately, right? 401ks, 403bs, et cetera, you have to be at least 59 and a half before you can withdraw it to avoid a penalty. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that because a lot of people assume that deferred comp is like a 401k, and it's not. Once you leave county service, you have access to your money. How do you enroll? It's pretty simple. You can go to treasurer.acgov.org and then grab a enrollment form. If you want to change your contribution amount to deferred comp, same website, treasurer.acgov.org. Okay. There's another way in which you can, real quick, you can access a payroll modification, changing the amount, and the enrollment form. Is you go to AlamedaCountyDCP.com, click on Learning Center, and then you'll see you can click on the enrollment form, then you can click on or the payroll modification form. Nevertheless, here's the website for you to view information about the plan. Now, you cannot register for the plan yet. If you're brand new, you can only take a look at those. You can only take a look at the about the plan, investing, etc. But once you have signed up, once your first contribution has been made to the plan, then you can click on register, follow the prompts, and then you can pull down your statement. You can look at your investments, make changes, etc. But don't try to register for the site if you're not, if you haven't contributed or if you're not signed up to the plan, with the plan. Okay. As with many financial institutions, you can download the app for the plan to be able to view your account information, etc. So just go on to Google or the App Store, grab the Empower app at your leisure. Okay. If you need some help, answers to questions about the plan, log on to AlamedaCountyDCP.com. Go to, I believe it's Meet Your Financial Educators or Meet Your Plan Advisors or something like that. Click on that. Then you'll see pictures of the different financial professionals, and I'm going to show the pictures later. But you can log on there to schedule a virtual or to schedule a phone appointment. Here we go. So there's Mark Tomei with Wells Fargo. There's myself with Emerge, Dan and Jose through Empower. So you can go to that same website to schedule an appointment. We're all trained, all professionals. It's really about continuity. It's about comfort level. So pick an advisor. You can always switch. Doesn't matter. Hey, I'm gonna check out what Gene has to say, and I think I want to see what Dan has to say. Oftentimes, we're going to be aligned together, um, but in some cases, there may be some slight tweaks because Mark and I we have private practices, so we work with clients, not only county employees, but we have private clients. So our advice could be a little different than Dan and Jose, which they predominantly work with either Alameda County or some sort of government employees. So their advice may be a little slightly different, but it's very, very subtle. So the website, or you can call 855-969-4572 to schedule an appointment. Okay. So with that, I'd love to entertain questions.
Thank you so much, Gene. That was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.